Yeah. I'm doing my feel for the day. I'm just funeral. Anyway, I wanted to do something today. It's the equivalent of links made from wrapped split rings. Just just a thought. Anyway, it came out really pretty. I've used this kind of a link before, and I love it. And I thought it would be really neat to just continue the process. I did a did I do a necklace with large wrapped loops that we wrapped around the ink pen? I think I did that, and then I got the idea, I think, from somebody in my classroom who did a double wrap just so they wouldn't waste the wire. And I thought, that is so neat. So we're going to do, it really turned out to be sort of like a split ring. So we're going to do a wrapped split ring graduated beaded bracelet. That is a mouthful. I'll have to come up with a different name. But that's what we're going to do today. It's doesn't have very many components. It consists of beads, of different sizes of beads. If you want, I'm using seed beads and one stone bead and 20 gauge wire. And that is it, 20 gauge wire and beads. That's all you need. And you need your usual tools, your round nose pliers, your square nose pliers. I explain these every time. I'm sure that hopefully anybody that's seen my tutorials knows what these are. But just in case, round nose pliers are, the barrels are round all the way around, and they get gradually smaller towards the tip of the barrel. The square nose pliers are slightly rounded on the outside. They're completely flat on the inside, and when you purchase them, you want to get the ones that don't have any of the grips on the inside, because that will mar your wire. It'll chew it up and it won't look very pretty. The last thing that you need is a pair of cutters. You can use flush cutters like this. This just happened to be what was around. I think I have another pair around here somewhere. But you just need a pair of cutters that you can use to cut your wire. You're going to need to use several size cylindrical items. I'm just using several sizes of pin. This is a broken pin. You can see the little thing on the inside, the little ink thing on the inside. This is a small, kind of a medium-sized pin, and I'm using a Sharpie to get a larger ring out of that, and then I'm going to use the very back of my pliers to get the small size split ring. That's all. That's what I'm using. It's entirely up to you. Depends on how big you want your rings to be, how small you want your rings to be. It's your aesthetic as far as that's concerned. Those are the things that I'm using. You can make them all one size. You don't have to make them graduated sizes the way I'm doing. That's just what I'm doing. And the other thing that I'm going to use is some little seed beads. I'm just using some little, you can use 3 or 4 millimeter seed beads, which would be, what is it, size 10 or size 6.0 seed beads in order to do this. You can also use small stone beads, 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter. I'm using a 6 millimeter for my little center loop that I'm going to make, because I just want that to be a little bit bigger and be sort of a focal piece, a little focal length. What else? Everything we are making, we're making our own hook, our own latch hook. So all you need for this is 20 gauge wire. And I'm using a bunch of scraps because none of it takes that much wire. I have some leftover pieces from other projects that I'm using. But what you're going to need, what I'm needing, depending on the size of your loop, the biggest loop I'm going to make is with this little Sharpie. And that's going to take, what is it, 4.5 inches of wire to make a double loop, which is the equivalent of a split ring out of for my length. So that's all I need. My largest loop is going to take 4.5 inches. My medium loop is going to take 3.5. And my smallest loop that I'm going to use my pliers for is going to take 2.5 inches. So depending on how many loops you make, how long your arm is, how many loops you make, it's impossible for me to give you specific measurements because it depends on what you use. Those of you who get kits are going to get, oh, and the other thing is I'm using 2 colors just to give it some contrast. I'm using copper and silver. And again, I'm using straps, so I don't have a whole spool. I'm using copper and silver wire just to give it some contrast on my piece because it's such a simple piece that I wanted to do something a little bit different. That's it. But those of you who get kits will get 3/4 to a yard of wire in each color because that's really all that you're going to need. It's so uncomplicated as far as components. I love it. So that's it. Let's get down here and get going. I want to see what this looks like. Okay, so I'm going to start with my center length, which is going to be my largest one. And I just need 4.5 inches of wire for that. Okay, so I'm making mine copper. So I've got my 20 gauge, I've got my 4.5 inches of wire. And I'm going to grab my Sharpie to make my large loop. So all I need to do is basically make a loop, and I'm going to add a 6mm, you can do 4mm, 6mm bead to it. But the first thing that I'm going to do is give myself about 1 inch of wire from the tip on one end. And then I'm going to wrap the other end around the Sharpie one time. So I've got a full wrap there. And I'm going to wrap it again around one more time. And you can either wrap it around or you can roll the Sharpie. It's entirely up to you, whichever way is easier for you to do it. Neither one of them is more right or wrong than the other. It just depends on what is easiest for you. So now I've got 2 wraps around there. As you can see, I've got my short end crossed over with my long end. Here's my short on one side, my long on the other side. And now what I want to do is take that long tail and put a bend in it. I just need enough of the short tail to wrap around my long tail one time. So I'm going to make sure I have a good 1/2 inch of wire, of the long tail of wire. And I'm going to go down here and bend that long tail straight up, like so. So that's what I have. Take that off. And that's what I've got. My little split ring. And now I'm going to wrap it. Just wrap it closed. So this little short tail is going to shoot right around the long tail. So I only want to wrap it one time, but I want to make sure that I keep the rings in place. And in order to do that, I'm going to hold it right here at the top where the short tail kind of meets the long tail, and just wrap that little end around one time. Just give it one wrap around, and I'm keeping an eye on it so that it doesn't shift too much out of place that I can't adjust it. Get that wrapped around there. One time. Here we go. And check. I want to scoot that down. I want it as close to the loop as I can get. Like so. Here we go. There. And now I'm going to cut off that little excess because I don't need that. But before I do that, I'm going to squeeze my little loop a little tighter around the long stem so that it's nice and snug. And then let's cut off this excess down here. And I don't need it. Snip that off. And then squeeze down that little tip nice and snug around that longer stem. And there's my little split ring. You can see it's a little out of balance, just a bit. But if you want a little 3D look, you might like to have the little overlap leaning in one direction or the other. It's entirely up to what the way you want it to look. You can make a little adjustment on it to the way I want it to look. So there's my little split ring. Yay. And now I'm just going to introduce my little bead. This little lapis bead here. I'm going to slide that on. Again, you could go 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter, 8 millimeter. It depends on the look that you're after. I'm going to slide that on my stem. And now all I need to do is make a little loop. See how much I had left over? I probably only needed about 4 inches, but I'd rather have more than I need than less than I need. And maybe there will be enough that I can use that little piece later. So I'm going to go ahead and put a bend in my wire. I'm just going to bend that back. Here's my loop. It's going side to side. I'm going to bend my wire up and down, or front and back, whichever way you want to term that. So now this is what I have. I'm going to cut this off because I just need a small enough loop to link to my next loop. So I'm going to cut this off down to about 1/2 inch. And you can measure it if you want to. I'm just eyeballing. Set it off. Make a loop. So I'm going to grab my round pliers, slide my wire down about 1/4 of the way from the tip, and make a loop. So I'm just going to rotate my plier hand, make a little turn, open my pliers, reposition them, make another little turn, and I'm going to keep doing that until I have a loop. Close that up. And there we go. And there's my first little wrap split ring. Ta-da! My first little link. Yay! So I'm going to put that to the side. And this is going to be my center. And I'm alternating colors. So my next color is going to be silver out to the side. I'm going to give you a little preview. So this is what it's going to look like. Yeah, here's one side. So the way I'm doing it is I have my nice copper in the center, and then I'm going to have 2 silvers, slightly smaller. I'm calling that a medium size loop. And then I'm going to have a small loop in copper, small in silver, small in copper. That's my design. That's mine. It doesn't have to be yours. That's what I'm doing. So the next one I'm going to do is going to be the slightly smaller loop in the silver. So I'm going to grab my little, I call this a stylus, but it really isn't. It's actually a pin that's broken that I use as a cylindrical item. So now I'm going to grab a piece of silver wire, and it's the medium size that I'm making is going to be 3.5 inches. Again, you're going to have to figure out how much you're going to need. It just depends on the size of your cylindrical item that you use. So a little trial and error will go a long way. So I need 3.5 feet. 3.5 for my medium size. And probably the best thing that you can do is measure out a foot of wire, wrap your loop, your double loop, cut it off, and then remeasure your wire to see how much you have left. That'll tell you how much you use. So for instance, if I were to take this, what looks like about almost 10 inches of wire and wrap it around here and cut it off at the end, then I'd end up with 7.5 inches of wire, meaning that I used 2.5, or well, actually for this, it's going to be 3.5 inches of wire. So I would end up with 6.5 inches of wire. Yeah, which means I use 3.5 inches of wire. So that's one way that you can determine how much wire you need for each side of your loop. I would suggest just leaving your wire intact or cutting a foot off, making your first loop, measuring after you finish that particular length to see how much wire you have left, do the math, and that will tell you what you need to know. Okay, so I'm going to, I said I needed, 3.5 inches. I'm going to leave it intact because I know that's how much I need. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did for this one, which is give myself an inch of wire on this end from the tip and wrap the other around my little stylus here, my little cylindrical item, and then wrap it a second time, or roll the piece if you'd rather do that. Whichever way is easiest for you is the best way. There's no right or wrong. Just whatever works. Roll that around there until I have 2 loops. And once you get to where it's crossing over like this, it's going to look like 3 loops. But if you flip it over, you can see it's actually only 2. All right. So my wires are crossed over. Now I'm going to take the long tail. Make sure you have a good 1/2 inch or so. All you need is 1/2 inch. And if you give yourself more, that's fine, but that means you're just going to end up cutting off wire. If you don't want to waste wire, measure 1/2 inch on the tip. That's all that you're going to need in order to wrap your loop. Okay, so I'm going to go down here to where the wires are crossed. I'm going to put a bend in the long end of my wire like so. I'm going to take it off of my cylindrical item, and I'm going to wrap this short tail around the long tail, holding on to my loop so that it doesn't shift too much out of shape. Okay, so I'm going to wrap that around that long stem. Now, once you get it 3/4 of the way around, at this point, you can go ahead and take your pliers, squeeze that nice and close around that long stem. There we go. And I'm going to clip off that excess. You have to make sure everything looks the way I want it. If it's a little out of balance and you want to fix that, and just gonna shift it. And there's my nice double wrap split ring. So cut off that excess here. See how much I have left over after I finish. You really want to be frugal. Just keep cutting, just keep making that little short tail shorter every time until you find the winning formula for you so that you don't have to cut off as much wire. Have these little pieces left. You can't really do anything with. Okay, so there's my little wrap. I'm gonna just squeeze it down so it's nice and contained. Don't need it for me or anything. There we go. And there's my nice little wrap split ring. Now I'm going to put my beads on. Now for the medium-sized one, I'm just using my little seed beads. I'm going to take a couple of little seed beads. I'm using blue and black just because they're pretty together. Slide my blue one on and my black one on. Okay. And I'm going to make my loop. So just right above the bead, I'm going to bend my wire back. Again, my loop is going side to side. I bend my wire front to back. Then I'm going to cut this down to about 1/2 inch. Again, I'm just eyeballing it. You can measure. Cut that off. Now I'm measuring the piece to see how much I have left. I had a little less than 10 inches. And I have 6.5. Oh, just 3.5 inches was what I needed. And we had needed a little less than that. Slide my wire down about 1/4 of the way from the tip of my pliers. And let's make a loop. Small turn. Open my pliers, reposition them back. Another small turn. And I'm going to keep doing that until my loop is formed. Ta-da! There we go. Yeah. And that little guy is going to loop me onto my big one. That's pretty. Let's put them together. So all I need to do is open up that lip. Now, people always say, well, why do you close it if you have to reopen it? Because it's perfectly formed now. If I did it part of the way and then try to close it later after it's wrapped around my linked to my other wrap, it's a lot harder to get it to conform to the shape that I want. So I close it up into the shape that I want. Then I reopen it by just lifting the wire off to the side like that. Then I slide on my large loop and close the wire the same way I opened it, with it off to the side. I just lifted it up. Now I'm closing it back down. There we go. Here's my little link, and this is going to attach to the other side of my bracelet. No, this one. This is going to attach to, wait a minute. This goes there. This goes here. This goes there. This goes here. And make sure I'm going the right direction. And then I will put them all together. Boom, boom, this, and it goes that way. So let's flip that around, because this needs to attach like that. That's going to go like that. So this needs to be turned around. I'm going to open that up again. You take that off, and this actually needs to be attached to the other silver one. Just like that. I'm going to attach that to the other silver, close that up. And then this attaches to that silver one. It's going to go like that. All right, so let me open up my copper loop. That. Oops, open it up a little bit more. Just an inch. Like that on. Close it back up. Okay. And then that is going to attach to the other side. Like that. Okay, so let's attach that to my copper. Open that up. Like that on. And close. Nice and snug. And there's my nose of my bracelet. Now, when you're making this, remember to measure. You want to make sure that you measure everything and that everything is fitting the way that you want. So start making your ring, then try it on when you get to a certain point. If you know what your arm measurement is, measure it by against the ruler. And mine is almost finished. I know I need one more piece, and that is going to be my hook. And you all know how I like beaded hooks. Here we go. Yeah. Just enough space for it. There. You know how I like beaded hooks, right? What I need right now is one more link, and it's going to be one of the teeny, well, not teeny, but one of the small links, and then I need to make my hook. So let's go ahead and make the small link so I can show you how I did that. I showed you how I used a stylus for the large loop and a smaller pin size for the medium loop. And now I'll show you how to make a small one. That's also going to be made out of the copper. And for me, for the small one, I can give you a better approximate. You need, since you're using your pliers, it takes about 2.5 inches of copper wire. Now, granted, all pliers are not created equal, so they may not all have the same size down here at the hilt, but approximately 2.5 inches. If you're more comfortable with it, use 3 inches, just so that you don't have to worry about running out of wire. All right, now I'm going to leave mine on the spool because I know it's 2.5 inches and I don't want to waste anything. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I did with the stylus and the Sharpie, but I'm using my pliers instead. I'm going to give myself a 1/2 inch extension of wire here. I'm going to go right down here to the hilt of my pliers, and I'm going to wrap the wire around my pliers. One time, nice and tight. And the second time, I'm going to have to take my wire off of my pliers and put it back on over that little extension so that I can keep twisting. Okay, wrap it around one more time. There we go. And there is my nice little split ring. Neat, huh? There it is. Now I can go ahead and make my little bend, straighten my wire out, and go ahead and cut that off. Give yourself a good inch of wire, approximately a quarter of an inch for the beads, because I'm going to put beads on there, and then another quarter to a half an inch for your loop. It doesn't take very much. Give yourself a good inch, just to be safe. Get that off. Bend that wire straight up, just like I did with the other one. Up. So, and then I'm going to wrap the short tail around the long stem, just like I did with the others. Squeeze that nice and close, tight. Okay, make sure everything's lined up the way I want it. Wonky over there. Fix that. And cut off a little tail. Rid of that little piece. Just down the little. Here we go. There's my small one in comparison to my others. And you can see the difference in size. Okay, so now I'm going to put my beads on. There. And a little opening. There we go. Blue one and my black one. Now look at that. I did not need all that wire. Oh well. Put my little bend in. This side. You have to decide what you want your front or your back to be, or if there's a difference for you. My little bend in there. Put it down to a half an inch. And make my loop. Again, I'm just going down about a quarter of the way from the tip of my pliers. I like to try and check to make sure that there's nothing sticking out the back so that I can get a good, solid, round loop and not a pear shape or a teardrop. Give myself one little turn, reposition, turn again, reposition, and one more time until I have my loop. There we go. Nice. And it's going to attach to the silver. There we have it open. Slide that on there. Close it up. And there it is. So there is my bracelet. I just want it to be able to come around and almost meet. And the last thing that I'm going to make is my hook. I don't need another loop because my hook will hook directly into the other side of my bracelet. Neat, huh? But there it is. This is our bracelet. And because my two last links are copper, I'm going to make my hook in silver. Oh, I like it. Okay, so let's grab a piece of silver. Oh, I've got this little, how much is on here? Is that enough? Let's see how we, okay, this is about not quite 3.5 inches, and I'm pretty sure that will do it. Let's give it a shot. I hope I'm right. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it again, which is what I'm telling you shouldn't have to try to do. Now, I could use this bigger piece, but I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a chance and see if I can do it. All right, so what did I say? I had 3 and a little over, yeah, almost 3.5, 3.5. But I'm making a hook, and that makes a difference in the size. So let's keep that in mind. I've got 3.5 inches. I'm going to make my loop, go back here to the very back, make my double loop. Just like I did the small one, the other small one. Wrap that around. One time. Then when I get here and I can't go any further, I have to take my pliers off and put them over the extended part and wrap that around. Keep wrapping until my wires cross over. There we go. Take that off. Make my little bend like I've been doing. Bend in the wire. Wrap this little short tail around the long stem. Just like I did all of the other time. Okay. And squeeze that down so that it's nice and close. Wrap around that long stem. There we go. Cut off that little tip that I don't need. Okay. You can go away, lightweight, and just push down that little end. Nice and snug. There we go. Here's my little brass loop. You can see that's a little more reduced than I want. I'm going to adjust it a little bit so that they're a little more on top of each other the way I want. There we go. Put my beads on. Get on there. Yeah. And now it's time for me to make my hook. So my loop is going side to side, and I want the same thing for my little hook here. So what I'm going to do, you can do this a couple of different ways, but I'm going to go ahead and make a double hook. So what I'm going to do is go down, and I don't need it to be too big. So I'm just going to go halfway down. A little more than halfway down my wire. So let me check and see how much I've got. I've got an inch and of wire. just right there at the bead, just barely an inch and a half. So I'm going to go 3/4 of the way down my wire. Actually, I'm going to go, I'm going to go 3/4 of the way down my wire, and I'm going to fold the wire in half. Now, usually when I show you how to do this, I do this part first, but we're doing it a little bit different. I'm going to fold that wire. Until I have a long edge and a short edge, and I think I'm going to make it a little bit longer. What have we got here? About half an inch. I'm going to make it about 5/8 of an inch instead. So straighten that out. Give myself 5/8 of an inch, which is right about there. And fold that over. And I want it to go the same direction as my loop. My loop's going side to side, and so is this, side to side. Again. And one of the reasons I do this first is because it's a little harder to fold that tightly in because of the beads that are there. It can be done. It's just a little more of a challenge. So I'm going to squeeze it as tight as I can right here at the tip with my fingers. And when I can't squeeze it anymore with my fingers, I'm going to squeeze it the rest of the way with my pliers. So get that squeeze nice and tight together. Then I'm going to go down here to right above my bead, and I'm going to put a bend in my wire. You can use your fingers or you can use your pliers, whichever way works better. Get a bend in it. Then I'm going to wrap this short tail around the wire just above the bead one time. So I'm going to use my pliers, hold that in place, because it's going to want to wriggle around. So I slide it to the center towards the back of my pliers, where I have the best grip. Hold it with my pliers. And then you can either use your fingers or a second set of pliers to wrap that tail, that little short end around the long end. And you want to get nice and close. Get a nice little wrap around there. Very short tail. So have a lot of patience. Nice and easy, just wrap that around. Turn it. Wrap it more. And I only need to go around one full time. Come on. I'm going to take my pliers and squeeze that nice and close. And we just wrap it the rest of the way around. And I just want one little wrap. And it probably would have been easier if I had given myself more wire, but this is working. So I've got my one little wrap around there just to secure my wire. Nice and snug. And now I'm going to make my little hook. So I'm going to bend my wire back. Straighten. I'm going to bend my wire back or up towards me like that. So this is what I have. There's my little ring, and my wire's going straight up. Then I'm going to take the tip of my pliers. It can be the round ones or the square ones, as long as you just use the tip. I think it's easier to see with the tip of the round one. Right here at the tip of my little two wires, with the tip of my pliers, I'm going to put a little bit of a ledge here. So I'm just going to twist my wrist just a little bit, enough so that I now have that. So now this is what I'm doing. Here we go. And now I'm going to make my little hook. So I'm going to go right down here to, halfway to 2/3 down my pliers, and right under where I put that little bend, this little latch that's on the end. And I'm going to put a small curve it around a small amount. Then I'm going to open my pliers up and reposition them, and then curve around a little bit more, open, reposition, and close that up until I have a nice little shepherd's hook. And this is what I have now. There it is. There's my little shepherd's hook attached to my split ring. And now I just need to attach it. So I'm going to take the loop from my last split ring, open it up to the side, attach it to my loop, close that back up. Nice and snug, make sure it's completely closed. And ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, I now have a bracelet. Woo-hoo! Isn't that neat? Nice little latch hook bracelet. Or I guess I should call it a split ring bracelet, because that's really what it is. I think I'll put it on. It doesn't match what I'm wearing, but I don't care. Actually, you know what? It does match. It matches my little earrings. Yeah. Probably nothing larger than I might usually like, but it's fine. Yeah. Just love that air. Okay. Here we go. Oh, there it is. There it is. There's our bracelet. It's so simple. I didn't think it would go with what I'm wearing, but it's so simple that it does. What do you think of that? I like it. It'll go with anything. Oh man, I do like this a lot. Wow. Okay, there it is. There's our piece for the day. I'm gonna do this again. I think I'm gonna do this in a necklace. Uh, all you have to do is change up the beads if you want to. You can change up the colors. You can change the sizes of the rings. And you just have a very simple bracelet. Who did I see do this? I saw somebody do this differently, but they actually just did the rings. They didn't put beads on it. They just did the rings and they attached them. And I thought that was so neat. But you know me, I like beads. So I said, what if we added some beads on it? And that's what I did. As a matter of fact, I don't think they did theirs double. I'm going to have to look that up. They may not have doubled theirs. They may have just done a single ring. Anyway, I just wanted something layered. And this is what we have. That's it. I hope you like it. So, I hope you like this. You can do so much with this simple design. You can make it all one color. You can make every link a different color if you want. Copper, bronze, silver, gold, whatever you want to do with it. Oh my gosh, I think the possibilities are endless. And then when you start changing with the bead colors, you could do all metal beads. You don't have to do bead colors. You can do all metal beads. You can do all one color. You can make the beads bigger or smaller. You can do the seed beads like I did with a focal piece in the center. I will be doing this again because I want to show you all the possibilities of what you can do with this particular, okay, my alarm is going off, with this particular design, and make it completely different each time. You can do companion pieces. Oh, we have to do some earrings. We're going to have to. Anyway, that's it for the day. I really enjoyed this. I love this bracelet. It's so versatile. I can wear it with anything. I really, when I was getting ready to put it on, I said, it's not going to go with my outfit. It goes with my earrings because they're copper. And they were made by maybe Carla. Thank you, Carla. I love these earrings so much. Actually, the birds, they're hammered copper, and she made the birds, and I made it in earrings, and I absolutely love them. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you will let me know one way or the other what you think about or thought about this tutorial. Did you like it? Did it look okay? Was the lighting good? Was I on camera? I think I saw some little shaky spots in places, but I hope that it worked out okay for you. You can leave me a message on my email at jewelrygen20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com. And as I said in the last video, that 20 is the year that I first started doing these tutorials for the DeKalb County Library, the library system, because they were trying to make sure that we kept people engaged through the pandemic. And we just kept going once it ended because people seemed to really enjoy them. And I'm so happy that you did. We're all so happy that you enjoyed them and that we found a way to keep in contact and to communicate with you and educate you on different projects and just things that you would like to do. Because there are a lot of people who still don't like to get out a lot because there's still some danger there. So if you enjoyed this, please get in touch with me at my email. Send me comments, send me pictures there. I would love to see them. You can also leave comments and pictures on the DeKalb County Library Facebook page. That's facebook.com/DeKalb Library. That's facebook.com/DeKalb or you can leave comments only on, they don't accept pictures for whatever reason, on the YouTube page, which is youtube.com/DeKalb Library. And I hope to hear from you. Let me know what you think, what you thought, what you'd like to see maybe later on, and how we did on this particular tutorial. But until then, have a great week, have a great weekend, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.